I the a-hole for no longer doing the dishes after my wife called me her dish B-word? My office is only a couple miles from my house, so I usually go home for lunch every day. Since it is so close, I have time to do the dishes, take out the trash, switch the laundry, etc. before I go back to work. I find it's a nice use of my lunch break. It helps to free up some time in the evening, so I can relax more with my family. A couple weeks ago, my wife had a few of her girlfriends over for drinks. I was in the other room watching TV, but I could hear them talking and laughing, and I heard my wife make a comment about how she has me trained so well. I come home on my lunch break to do the dishes and called me her dish B. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Even if she was just joking with her friends, it felt really demeaning to me. It felt like she was putting me down so that she could feel bigger in front of her friends. So I didn't do the dishes or any other chores when I was at home at lunch the next day. My wife gets home from work before me every day, and instead of coming home to a clean kitchen and empty sink, there are dishes piled up and the trash needs to be taken out, etc. When I got home, my wife was doing the dishes and told me I need to give her a hand because she needs to get dinner started. She asked if I came home for lunch that day, and I said I did. She asked why I didn't do the dishes, and I told her that her dish B was on strike. She stopped what she was doing and looked at me with her mouth open. I told her that, yeah, I heard what she said, and that I don't appreciate her putting me down to her friends just so that she can feel good about herself. She said she was just joking around and she doesn't really think about me that way. I told her she would flip her crap if she heard me talk about her that way to my friends. She said they were just joking around, and it didn't mean she actually thought that. I told her I want to believe her, but I honestly don't think she was just joking. I told her I think I might just start going out to eat at lunch, or take a lunch to the office from now on. She told me I was being petty and overreacting. I told her I don't think I am. She then asked if I was going to help her with the dishes so she can start dinner, and I said, no, I don't think I will. I told her I will play with the kids to keep them distracted since we are having a later dinner that night. After the kids went to bed, she told me I was being an a-hole about one little joke that she didn't even mean, and I was blowing this way out of proportion. I told her she knows how much she'd freak out at me if I said something like that, so I don't think I'm overreacting at all. I told her respect goes both ways and she doesn't get to put me down to her friends to make her feel bigger. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife demeaned you to her friends. That's what really bothers me. She made me the butt of a joke to make her friends laugh. And to imply that she has me trained? The whole thing just makes me feel less than and unappreciated, when all I was doing was trying to make our lives a little easier and to give us a little more time with the kids each night. Okay, I'm a wife and my husband does a lot around the house. If I made a joke, which I wouldn't, about him being a little homemaker and he told me it hurt him, you know what I'd do? I'd apologize. Just straight up own it. Tell him I'm sorry I was insensitive and dismissive of him. I'd not only never do it again, but make sure I said, in front of the same friends and him, that I had messed up and was stupid, that I valued him and his contribution to our marriage, and I'd make damn sure I never took his contributions for granted. But what do I know though? I've only been married 31 years. You're not the a-hole, my dear. If the roles were reversed, all of these comments would say, leave the partner, he's disrespecting you when you actually are making his life easier. Red flags all around. Therefore, you are not the a-hole. God, exactly this. You are exactly correct. If the situation was reversed, you'd be turning you behind for demeaning your wife, even if it was just a joke. Respect goes both ways. It's not nice to talk about your partner like that behind their back, and neither it is nice to take your partner's actions for granted. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to get my girlfriend an expensive engagement ring? I've 26 male, been with my girlfriend 26 female for 4 years, and we've recently been talking more and more about marriage. Although my girlfriend grew up relatively well off, for the time I've known her, she's been pretty low maintenance. She's never cared about designer brands, rarely buys new clothes, and the jewelry she owns was gifted to her. I have a decent job now, $80K a year, and I've been saving up for a while, but growing up my family didn't have a lot of money. My girlfriend and I have always seemed to be on the same page when it comes to saving money. I assumed she would be fine with a more affordable ring. So when I started looking into rings, I discovered moissanite rings, which look similar to diamond rings but are much more affordable, and I was looking at rings in the $1,500 to $1,800 range. When I mentioned this to her, she insisted she wanted a real diamond ring, and sent me links to a bunch of diamond rings that she liked. The prices ranged from $6,500 to $10,000. I told her that I wasn't willing to spend that much. She seemed genuinely mad, and said it wasn't that expensive. We got in a pretty big argument over it. I told her that it was ridiculous to ask me to spend that much, and I thought she was more reasonable than that, and she said I was being cheap and that I could afford it, and that I was basically saying she wasn't worth it. I told her no one is worth a $10,000 ring. Eventually, my girlfriend said she didn't care, and that I should get whatever ring I want. But she's clearly still mad, and I know this is going to be an ongoing argument. I'm a bit frustrated because this seems out of left field. I've always known marriage is super important to her, but I didn't realize she'd insist on a diamond ring. So I talked to my older sister about it, who, despite agreeing diamond rings were stupidly priced, sided with my girlfriend. Said if I could afford it, she didn't see the big deal. She added that my girlfriend has done so much for me, and I was being an a-hole about this. What my sister means by my girlfriend doing so much for me is that she was really supportive when I was in a serious car accident 4 years ago. I broke multiple bones and required a few surgeries. Although where I live most healthcare is covered, I wasn't able to work for a while. It had expenses I wasn't able to pay. I had been dating my girlfriend for only 6 months at the time, and she was really there for me. I couldn't pay my rent, so she let me move in with her for free and helped pay for a few expenses and for physical therapy I needed. She also helped me get a job with her uncle, who was the VP of an insurance company. It was an entry-level position, and I had a business degree, so it's not like I wasn't qualified. Obviously, I've thanked her for all she did for me, but it's not something we talk about much. I don't think I'm obligated to buy an expensive ring because she helped me out a few years ago. But if my own sister said this, I'm guessing my girlfriend must feel the way as well. Am I the a-hole here? Gently, you're the a-hole. I completely get not wanting to spend your money like that or put any coin into the pockets of the beer's monopoly. But by saying no one is worth $10,000, you have inadvertently assigned monetary value to the woman you want to spend the rest of your life with. You both should sit down and look at alternatives together. Don't frame it as her not being worth it. Try to educate her on the unethical nature of the diamond trade and see if she wants an alternative stone. Opie doesn't give a crap about blood diamonds. He cares that it costs a lot. Him educating her about it, just him using a different cudgel to get her to agree with him. And I'm not saying is wrong. $10K is a huge amount. But the girlfriend is smart. She's not going to be fooled by sudden serious concern at how unethical diamonds are. You're the a-hole. She's typically low maintenance and agreeable. She supported you and stepped up when you needed her without complaint. She had asked for this one thing you find unreasonable but can afford. It's something she's going to wear every day for the rest of her life. Talk with her about it. Ask her to explain why it's so important to her without interrupting or arguing. That part is important. When it's your turn, tell her why you think it's too much. Focus on how you could use that money together, not just on being wasteful. Why you find it wasteful even though you can't afford it is what matters. No one is worth $10,000 sounds a lot like I don't love you that much in the heat of the moment. Once you have both given real, understandable, calm reasons, try to find a compromise if you still disagree. A diamond is important to her, so can you give her a budget you feel is responsible? Can you nudge that budget into an area that feels slightly uncomfortable to you? Neither of you may love the feeling of compromise, but that's what a healthy marriage takes. She's already shown you the richer/poorer sickness and health part. Now show her you can work with her to find solutions when you disagree. Thanks for the advice. I think I needed to hear this. We really need to talk about it again without getting into an argument over it. Edit. This post got way more attention than I expected. I've definitely reconsidered my stance. I'm going to talk about this more with her. Thanks for all your help. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not stepping up to be part of my kid's younger half-sibling's life? The mother of my 3 kids cheated on me during our marriage, and she ended up pregnant. I started divorce proceedings as soon as I found out, and DNA tests confirmed her youngest child was not mine. It also got me out of any responsibility because I knew the name of the real father and provided it to them. In the last 5 years, I have not wanted any part of my ex's other child. She has wanted me to, as the guy she cheated with is a deadbeat, and no guy she has dated since has wanted to take on her youngest as their own. I have focused on being a good dad to my kids, but I can't find it in myself to be anything to this other child. My kids have told me their mom brings it up to them. I've asked them how they feel, and they say since their sibling is not my child, they know I'm not responsible for him, and they think it's not a big deal like their mom thinks. But ever since the youngest started school, it has posed a bigger problem, because the child feels bad that it's not included by me, and it doesn't have a dad. It made my ex's family reach out and attack me, and call me an a-hole for not being willing to prevent this for the child. For my kids too, since they want them to care more than they do. So essentially, they want the kids to want me to include their sibling as part of our family, and not just family with their mom. And I think it got under my skin a little. It made me question if I'm the a-hole for not including this child, because I know I won't love the child. I know I don't want the child, and I know the child would always feel like a burden to me. I have been called an a-hole more in the last 2 months than ever before. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I feel badly for the little kid, but not the a-hole. The child isn't yours, and you can't be expected to live the reminder that your ex-wife cheated on you. You have no financial or emotional responsibilities here. The next time anyone calls you, tell them to mind their business and stay in their lane. Better yet, let them know if they care so much. The rule is free. They can step up and be the father figure they so desperately want the kid to have. Not the a-hole in any way. Your ex's child does have a dad, but it isn't you, and raising the child as its father is not your responsibility. On top of it, I wonder if the ex would be able to claim allowance for the illegitimate kid as well, if Opie ever gives in and becomes a father figure to him. Anyway, not the a-hole. You don't love the kid, you didn't make the kid, and thus it is not your role to care for the kid. Your ex caused the situation along with her lover. It does suck for the kid, however, I can understand why you feel the way you do. It's not on you to provide for him or take an active role in his life. Your ex has made her choices, and now she has to live with them. And now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for giving my sister-in-law's baby formula? I'm going to start my post by saying that I don't have kids, and I have no experience with babies or motherhood or children. I'm 18 and beyond being around them in group settings, where at least one of the parents and a ton of people are around. That's it. Just for some context to my post. My brother's wife had a baby 17 days ago. I didn't go visit them yet, but my brother and sister-in-law sent me some pictures. My brother said our cousin Rachel was around a lot because my sister-in-law is having trouble breastfeeding, and Rachel's a big believer in it and is helping her. I offered to help them if they needed it. And on Saturday, they asked me to go to the grocery store for them because no home delivery had an open spot. When I dropped the food off, I was shocked at how bad my sister-in-law looked. She literally looked like The Walking Dead. Barely awake and not showered, and she was actually crying because she was so frustrated. It actually scared me how bad she looked. At first, I didn't want to butt in, but it bothered me so much I went back to the store and got a can of baby formula. I figured it would give her a break and my niece could eat. It was even worse when I gave it to my sister-in-law, because I said it was no big deal if my niece got formula. My sister-in-law broke down and I was honestly scared because she was weeping. Like in the movies when someone dies kind of weeping. No one told her it was okay not to breastfeed. She felt so guilty because of Rachel butting in and no one telling her formula was okay. I actually ripped my brother a new one because he sat back while my sister-in-law suffered. There was no way he didn't see how bad she looked. No offense, but she looked terrible. I got my sister-in-law to shower after my niece ate and fell asleep, and I changed the sheets on the bed and told my sister-in-law to sleep while my niece slept. And I said I would get more baby formula. I thought I did the right thing, because my sister-in-law actually stopped crying, showered and slept. And the next 3 days she looked better and didn't cry again, and my niece gets full. My idiot brother smarted up and told Rachel to stay away, and everyone else, especially our parents and sister-in-law's parents, to butt out. Now they take turns feeding, so they both can sleep. My parents and Rachel are furious at me. Sister-in-law's sister was in agreement with Rachel and left me an angry voicemail full of swearing. Rachel basically had sister-in-law holding the baby while topless 24/7, and my dumb brother sat there and didn't help with the baby at all. Rachel breastfed all her kids until they could walk and talk and never had problems, but my sister-in-law obviously did. My dad said I overstepped and should not have butted in. And normally I'm big on minding your own business, but this time I was really scared after seeing sister-in-law on Saturday. Since I'm not a mother or baby expert, I have no idea what it is like with a newborn. Now I'm second-guessing after feeling like I did the right thing, because everyone is angry with me and say I should mind my own business. Not today, home. You probably saved a baby's life. Husband should have taken her to the hospital and they would have probably done the same thing, giving the baby formula. Some people are so smug about thinking they are right, they ignore the facts under their noses. Not only that, you're a smart, kind and loving person. Thank you for saying this. It sounds stupid, but I was second-guessing because everyone got so mad. But honestly, I have never been more afraid when I saw my sister-in-law. You did the right thing. My baby is around the same age, so going through it too. And the first couple of weeks of trying to breastfeed is tough. We had to supplement with formula the first week. But a fed newborn is best for everyone. All that matters is they're not starving and they're growing. If your sister-in-law really does want to breastfeed, Look into lactation consultants. The hospital may have resources available for her. I get to see them through my hospital for 6 weeks. They're the ones that advised me to use formula until I produced enough milk, and baby figured it out. They're a much better support system than whatever your sister-in-law is going on now. They helped me gain the skill and confidence and taught me how to grow my supply. Or sticking with formula is great too. Whatever works best for your sister-in-law is best for baby. Not day home. I teach developmental psychology, and one of the biggest conversations I have with my students each semester is that a fed baby with sane parents is the goal. Breastfeeding is often sold as the best/only responsible option, but that just isn't true. While breast milk is associated with better short-term outcomes, by the time kids are in school, there is no significant difference between breastfed and formula kids. You did right by helping your sister-in-law. In that state, she couldn't be the best possible parent for her kid. Sometimes we need to be given permission to do things in a way that works for us, rather than the way society tells us. You gave her that permission. I didn't even realize what a big deal people made over breastfeeding until my sister-in-law broke down and I posted here. Before that, I had no idea. Am I the a-hole for splitting with my wife after she aborted our baby after things is psychic said? I, 34 male, have been married to my wife for 8 years. We have a 6-year-old together, and my wife was also pregnant. My wife's very spiritual, and I'm not very knowledgeable on the things she enjoys because I grew up strictly religious. But it's fun to her, and I never minded as long as I wasn't involved. When my wife was pregnant with our first child, she went to see a psychic to get a reading on our baby. The psychic predicted correctly it'd be a boy with blonde hair, which isn't hard to tell because my wife has blonde hair. She also got a reading on herself a year before she met me, and the psychic said she would find the love of her life soon. Basically, my wife went this time for our second child, and the psychic freaked out and said this baby would grow up to do horrible things and hurt many people, living a life of crime and cause blood of the innocent to drip. Some real horror movie stuff. My wife believed her and went and made an appointment for an abortion without notifying me. When she told me she had booked the appointment, I tried to talk her out of it, which she agreed, but then went and had it secretly done with her sister. Basically, I packed up myself and let to go stay with my mother. I told her we were through and I'd be back for my son, but I didn't want to speak to her besides that. I lost a child we tried for months to conceive over a psychic. My wife said I was leaving her at a time she needed me the most, and how horrible of a person I was because it was her body and her choice. She then accused me of abandoning my family because of the control I was lacking over her body. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife is nuts. Try to get full custody of your son. Nuts? This witch is nuttier than squirrel shit, and dumber than a sack of hammers if she believes a psychic. Not the a-hole. Get your son out of this situation before the psychic tells her to hurt him. File emergency custody immediately. 100%. I'm completely pro-choice, but this story makes me question her ability to make rational decisions and to care safely for a living child. Not the a-hole. I'm completely pro-choice too, and honestly, if she had said, I don't want a second baby and I'm getting a procedure, that would be totally fine, whether or not Opie was on board with it. Yeah, they'd probably split up over it, but that would all be within the scope of her living and mental capacity to make that choice. This is none of those things. Opie specifically said that they both wanted this baby. She appeared to agree with him when he tried to talk her out of aborting, and then she went behind his back, which would have been a major breach of trust on its own, but not unheard of, I suppose. At that point, even without knowing her reason for it, Opie could have chosen to leave her. And it wouldn't be about control of her body, but the general breakdown in their relationship. But wait, there's more. Her reasoning for aborting points to complete lack of judgment, let alone common sense. While she may not currently be a danger to herself or others, like their other child, with her decision-making process so incapacitated, that may change on a dime. At this point, Opie would be the a-hole to himself if he stayed, and to his son if he doesn't get him ASAP. Not the a-hole. This is horrendous, to be honest. She's not stable. What happens to your son if the psychic tells her he is gonna do something wrong or bad? Jesus, that's crazy, man. She should be ashamed of herself, especially for doing it behind your back. Her language was also manipulative as heck. Absolutely her body, her choice. But that choice has ramifications. Reminds me of the people who get fired for saying stupid stuff and then cry the First Amendment. Next story. Am I the a-hole for resisting my girlfriend's and therapist's reading of a situation? I'm 36 male, been dating my girlfriend 38 female for about 1.5 years. Things haven't been going so great, so we've started couples therapy a little while ago. In a recent session, my girlfriend said I wasn't being supportive and gave the following situation as an example. One evening, I didn't reply to her texts for about an hour and missed a call from her. I genuinely didn't see them. I usually respond more quickly, but there certainly have been cases where I or she haven't responded for longer than that, and it wasn't an issue. Before I saw the text, she got mad at me, sent me more texts calling me a prick, saying I didn't care about her, that I was just coasting the relationship, etc., etc. When I looked at my phone, I ignored the insults and apologized for missing her texts and explained that I didn't see them. She kept having a go at me, eventually telling me she wouldn't speak to me on the next day. When she brought it up with a therapist, she admitted that the way she behaved was not great, but that she was feeling sad that day and needed support. The therapist let her off the hook completely for her behavior, and we spent literally the next 40 minutes discussing ways in which I could act differently to avoid similar situations in the future. I felt this was not fair, as she completely lost her temper over something very minor. I was trying to explain the obvious fact that it can happen that you don't see someone's texts immediately, and pointed out that I immediately apologized for missing them. My girlfriend insisted that if only I called her back immediately, this would have been already after she started abusing me. That would have made everything okay. And the therapist acted like it was 100% on me to act in the way my girlfriend would expect. I said that my girlfriend was so angry that it didn't seem like anything would calm her down, and at any rate I couldn't have known that calling her back would make it all okay. I also said that since she was being abusive, I had a right to step away from the situation. The therapist acted like my girlfriend was completely right about this, and kept saying, just admit you didn't want to call her, which I refused to do, saying it's a really unhelpful way of framing this. I still think I was drawing a healthy boundary for not caving in and defending my behavior. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your girlfriend sounds like a needy, self-absorbed drama queen. Why would you want to continue dating someone like this? You need an objective therapist, not this one. Girlfriend is out of line. I accidentally left my phone on mute after a restart and forgot to turn it back on. That's on me, but not that I was trying to avoid getting a call. This therapist is the worst. Yep, OP is screwed. The girlfriend has found a therapist who will pacify her negative behavior. The relationship will just get worse. OP will always be wrong. He needs to make an exit from the relationship. Not the a-hole. It sounds as if your girlfriend's therapist is actually endorsing and enabling your partner's bad behavior, rather than working a way around her rude and clearly toxic traits. I would suggest that you state to your girlfriend she needs to grow up and start being an adult and not a toddler. Otherwise, you can't see the relationship going any further. At the very least, get a new therapist. Like, I'ma be real. If I've only been dating someone a year and a half, and we've already talking about couples therapy, I'm just cutting my losses. Because this clearly isn't going to work out. Couples therapy is for a long-term relationship where you both have a lot of history and love for each other and know that the relationship is worth fighting for, not someone you've only been dating a year and change and is already acting like this. Girlfriend is chronologically 38 with the emotional intelligence of a 14-year-old. Every field, therapy included, always ends up with a few lemons. Looks like you got a ripe one. No one should be expected to tolerate abuse in order to validate someone else's feelings. The feelings may be valid to start with. Once abuse becomes the coping mechanism, all validity goes out the window. Not the a-hole. My ex is now a therapist. She was enough of a train wreck that I can't imagine her giving anyone advice. Yep, the most batch crazy woman I know is a therapist. This is a chick that was in Narcotics Anonymous by the time she was in high school, is still an alcoholic, admits that she likes the bad boys. Something about a prison record gets me going, was an actual quote from her, and she says she can't understand monogamy. I'm sure at this point you wouldn't be surprised to learn that she's married to a meek little wimp of a man, and they enjoy an open marriage, which means she brazenly bangs all her felon ex-boyfriends on a rotating schedule when they're out on parole between prison sentences. Yes, this is the woman you're paying $200 an hour to help you through a difficult spot in your marriage. Next story. I can't see myself settling down with my pregnant girlfriend of 5 years. Am I the a-hole? I, 29 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, 28 female, for 5 years. We've had discussions about our future goals, settling down, having children, and other similar aspects. Initially, we were both on the same page. I believed she was the one for me. However, lately, I've been feeling a sense of boredom and monotony in our relationship. Our intimate life is great. She's a wonderful cook and she's objectively attractive. There isn't anything inherently wrong in our relationship. But the thought of being stuck in a repetitive routine is becoming overwhelming for me. Additionally, 3 of her close friends are either engaged or married, and she keeps pressuring me about when we'll take that step. I had been contemplating ending the relationship because I found it increasingly difficult to pretend that everything was fine. However, last week, she told me that she had taken 3 different pregnancy tests, all of which came back positive. To say that I was mortified would be an understatement. Despite my best efforts to conceal my reaction, she could tell that something was off, and she asked me how I felt about the situation. And I must admit that my choice of words could have been better. I asked her if abortion was an option, which caught her off guard. The following 2 minutes were filled with an uncomfortable silence. After that, she got up and left the apartment. Since then, she hasn't spoken with me at all, and I assume she's considering breaking up with me. Meanwhile, her friends and family have been calling me names, but I have chosen to ignore them as their opinions hold no significance to me since they aren't directly involved in this situation. Despite me feeling free and so much better now that we aren't together anymore, I still can't help but think I might have been the a-hole. Now for the comments. You think you're free? Wait for the court summons. Just what I was thinking. My dude doesn't even realize how little freedom he is about to have for the rest of his life. Yeah, it's bizarre that he's not realizing he will never be free if his partner or ex is pregnant and isn't getting an abortion. But soon he will realize the joys. Right? I also enjoy the part where he says her friends and family's opinions hold no significance to me since they aren't directly involved in this situation. Like what? Yes, this very much involves them. Especially if OP's response was just end the pregnancy. They are going to help raise the baby. OP, yes, you're the a-hole. In a few years, you will probably look back at this and see what a massive a-hole you are being. Then again, you are nearly 30, so maybe not. You need to take responsibility for that baby if you want to be with your girlfriend or not. It's okay to want to break up, but you can't just walk away. You are not as free as you think. Your life will forever be different, even if it's just child support payments. Stop acting like you are 18 and take responsibility for your role in this situation. I have the incredible privilege of having a loving, steady girlfriend whom I for some reason judge on sex, her cooking, and her attractiveness. Even though I love all of those things about her, I'm getting bored with my steady relationship just at the time my girlfriend turns up pregnant. This is, of course, after we've been together 5 years and had discussions about our future to the point where she assumed we'd be together forever and a pregnancy would be welcome. When she told me she was pregnant, I told her to abort the baby because I was bored and thought about breaking up with her. OMG, yes, you're the a-hole. Whom I for some reason judge on her cooking and her attractiveness. I feel awful for her for many reasons, but especially the 5 years with this a-hole, and this is what he distills her down into. A hot chick who feeds and bangs him. My first husband used his exact line to try to get back with me after I divorced him. You cook and clean more than other girls and you have a hot body. Pass. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to end my relationship because my fiancé wants to spend Christmas with his daughter and ex-wife? I, female 29, met my fiancé, male 35, 5 years ago and had a 2-year-old daughter who he has shared custody of with his ex-wife, female 40. I always admired his friendship with his ex and how they're raising their daughter amicably. The first Christmas, he told me that he was going to spend it with his ex-wife and baby. He stays the whole 3 days, 24 to 26. I didn't even think about it because we've been dating for some months only. I usually fly home to my parents on Christmas anyway. This happened every Christmas afterwards and I was fine. He proposed to me in February. Yesterday, he asked me if I was going to buy my flight to my parents early, so I don't need to pay 3 to 4 times the cost if I buy it around Christmas. I was surprised and told him that I thought that we could do Christmas together this year. He said, what? We, his ex and he, always celebrate Christmas together for the daughter's sake. I told him that it was not okay now we are engaged to be married. I asked him why they don't do alternate Christmases or days like other divorced couples, but he said, no, we promise to make our daughter's life as normal as possible. I started thinking after his words, I don't know how this will work in the future. After 5 years together, I'm still shipped away every Christmas. And I know it's for the little girl who I adore, but I feel sick to my stomach. I think I want to end a relationship, but he thought I was being so selfish and horrible. I feel horrible too, but I don't see any future with him. This is strange for long term. Have a serious discussion about what the future looks like. Once you have a family, the dynamics will change for his daughter and your future children. If he is planning on factoring in the ex's opinion long term, you gotta move on now. Thank you. I felt doubt that maybe it wasn't my place to ask him to be with me this Christmas, like I'm not that important in his life. Why can't you not go too? You are getting married, and if she got married or had a long-term partner, he should be included as well. Why not? Yep, either he and his ex are mature enough to co-parent with the shared holidays, meaning actually shared, including new spouses and future kids with those spouses. Or they're not, and they need to make an arrangement for trading off holidays. Do you plan on having kids with him? I'm not sure how that would work. I understand prioritizing his daughter, but he needs to figure out a better solution. Either switch to every other year or let you come with him. You say his ex doesn't want you there, then it would have to be alternate years. He needs to also prioritize you. Every Christmas without your husband sounds depressing. I will let him know exactly how you feel and ask him to find a solution. If he refuses, then you will know how much he actually cares about you and your feelings, not the a-hole. To be honest, I'm 8 weeks pregnant, and I hesitate to write it here, but I haven't told him yet. I asked him about our future children and him not being around every Christmas, and he replied that it's only fair. It broke me. It's gonna be interesting if you break up and keep the baby. Where is he gonna stay for Christmas? That's no mystery. He's already said his kids with Opie don't matter as much to him. She said above that he said even when they get married and have kids, he's going to spend every Christmas with his ex and their kid. Because, and I quote, "to get both parents every other day of the year. Christmas is nothing." Update. Fiancé just got home and showed me a text he got from his ex. He told her basically that he was planning to include me in this Christmas. Her answer was long and harsh, saying that I wasn't really family yet and that she wasn't comfortable with a stranger in her house. Then she accused him of being weak and prioritizing a woman over his daughter, who's in a sensitive age now. So he asked me that maybe not this year, but next year I'm definitely family because we will be married and his ex won't have any other excuses. I feel more conflicted now. Could I stay another year and hope it gets better? Or should I just cut my losses when he obviously isn't trying to support me? I know it's his daughter he's thinking of, and he doesn't want to make waves, but I feel like I'm nothing right now. Am I the a-hole for getting it elsewhere since my wife didn't want to have sex anymore? Basically, my wife has decided unilaterally that we are done having sex. She found out that she cannot have kids due to a choice she made before we met. And kids apparently are the only reason she was willing to be intimate. I love my wife and I enjoy being intimate with her, but it was making our marriage untenable after 2 years of this. So I posted for advice. I got a lot of great support and suggestions about how to talk to my wife. I tried a lot of it. I started going for counseling for myself as well. But no matter how I approached her about our situation, she would not try and see it from my point of view. Every discussion would end with her crying and screaming in my face that I'm trying to emotionally manipulate her. I then wrote her a letter outlining my feelings and asking her to come with me for counseling, to seek it for herself, perhaps to go see a doctor. I was kind and loving in the letter. The last thing I wanted to do was set her off. I worked on the wording with my counselor to make sure I wasn't saying anything aggressive that could be misinterpreted. She read the letter. Then she scrawled across it with her red Sharpie. "Go get it elsewhere, because you are not getting it from me." Then she walked out. I sat there for about an hour doing nothing. Then I told myself that was what I was going to do. We are both fairly successful in our jobs. I am not super attractive, but I'm fit and a good talker. It took a while, but I met someone. We started out as just friends, but it became physical. I made sure she knew I was married. She is not interested in a relationship, so I guess I'm a safe option for her. My wife found out because I did not try and hide it. She was crying when I got home one night. When I came in, she asked if I was going to leave her. I said no. She asked if I was cheating on her, and I said I was getting sex elsewhere. She said that I was cheating, and I did not disagree. I asked her what she wanted to do. She said I had to stop. I asked her if we were going to start doing it, and she said I was an irrational a-hole if I thought that she would sleep with me after I cheated. I went to my desk and pulled out a photocopy of the letter I wrote with her answer in it. I went to have a shower and go to my room to sleep. When I woke up, she was sitting on a couch waiting to talk. She said that she reread the letter and that she realized she had not before. She assumed it was just a letter begging for sex. She said she would go for counseling alone and with me. All I had to do was stop having it elsewhere. I said I would be willing to pause my friendship until we saw a counselor, and that if I saw progress in our relationship, I would break it off. She said she would not agree to counseling without me leaving the other woman. It almost turned into a fight, so I just went for my run. Before I left, I asked her what would compel her to go to counseling if I stopped having it elsewhere. When I got back, she still did not have an answer. She couldn't even say that our relationship was worth saving. I don't want a divorce, but I am willing to leave over this. I am 28. I'm not going the rest of my life without sex, but she refuses to see my side. Now for the top comments. Why don't you just leave her? I'm so confused. He's waiting for her to actually read a letter. She just assumed he was begging for sex. Holy crap. That's less than zero effort. I mean, they're not compatible. He knows it. We all know it. His wife apparently doesn't know it yet. LMAO. The fact that you made a photocopy of the letter tells me you already know this train is headed for divorce town. I am prepared for that eventuality. My brother and his ex-wife divorced for a lot of reasons, but one of which was his ex came out as asexual. He was lucky to have it a few times a year, more when they were trying to get pregnant. He's now got an awesome girlfriend he's crazy about and she's crazy about him. Told me how wonderful it is to feel desired. I honestly thought this was written by some middle-aged man. You're too young for that nonsense, bro. When I saw 28, I thought for sure he was 38 or 48 and it was a typo. Yeah, 40s this can happen, and the wife needs to take it serious and get her hormones checked. I went through it in my marriage, and it took a serious situation happening for her to see it. It is hard, because when they lose desire, they don't desire it, so don't have an overwhelming desire to fix it. 28 is way too young. I think the magic wore off and she got bored, and when women get bored, they tend to act in the manner OP describes. Funny part is, if that is the case, OP being with another woman is exactly what will snap her out of her boredom. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my wife confess to all her friends and family that she cheated on me if she did not want a divorce? I, 34 male, have been married to my wife, 32 female, for 5 years, and we have 3 children. A few months ago, I found out from my wife's texts that she had been cheating on me, and I confronted her about it. She confessed to it and gave me an entire breakdown of her affair, which had lasted for a month. I was devastated and asked her why. She gave no excuses for it and said she had caught feelings for her affair partner which were wrong and she had acted on them. He was her coworker. I asked her if I lacked in anything and she said no, and she was in tears. I needed a few days to process this. My wife gave me space, but she asked me many times to reconsider divorce because it would uproot the lives of our children. She said she would do anything I wanted for the rest of my life. After a week, I decided that I needed only one thing from my wife to completely forgive her, and that was to call each and every one of her friends and family and confess her affair. I told her that was my only condition. She was really hesitant and asked me if I could reconsider the condition because this would ruin a lot of her friendships and family relationships. But I told her this was what I needed as a part of my forgiveness process, and that if she didn't do this, I was going to start looking for a divorce lawyer. Over the next week, my wife made a phone call to all of her friends, parents, grandparents, siblings, uncles, aunts, pretty much anyone she knew, and confessed her affair. It was hurtful and there was a lot of crying. My wife was hurled with a lot of shouting. By the week's end, my wife had called everyone I had wanted her to call. It has been a few months, and my wife and I actually have a really strong relationship now. However, my wife has pretty much become isolated from her friends and a lot of her family. This has hurt her a lot, and she spends a lot of nights crying. But she says this was worth it for our relationship and for our children. Am I the a-hole? I just feel like that's embarrassing for you too. You stayed with a cheating spouse. Like your wife crapped the bed, then had to tell her whole family and friends she crapped the bed, while you were in the bed sitting in the poop. Not embarrassing for him. He stayed to protect the family unit. She is the horrible partner who cheated. These are simply the consequences for very poor behavior. I find it more embarrassing for him that he made her call everyone and tell them, thinking that would add something positive to the outcome. That was done as punishment in order to ensure that other people dished the punishment that he didn't have the backbone to dish. This was just the beginning of the end. The marriage won't last. Even if it doesn't last, he made sure that her family and friends knew she was a cheat. Doesn't matter what happens next, everyone important to her now knows not to trust her because she broke the trust in her marriage. Sounds like a win for OP either way. Next story. My ex-husband told me that it was my fault. I found out that my husband was cheating on me with my best friend last year. My best friend is very beautiful and she has always been fit. I have always loved how I look, but I am a happy eater. When I met my husband, I weighed 64 kilograms. I am 169 centimeters tall. By happy eater, I mean that when I am sad, I can't eat. I lose my appetite. When I'm happy, however, I love food because everything tastes a million times better. Everyone knows this about me and some people find it weird. We were together for 10 years when he cheated. I weighed 89 kilograms. We never discussed why he cheated. I was just shell-shocked for the longest time, and when I came out of my trance, the reasons didn't matter anymore. I weigh 57 kilograms now. I lost it all in a few months, then I had to start working out because I was losing so much muscle. I found new joy in working out. Now we lift weights 5 times a week. We decided that I have full custody until our son is 3 years old, so we don't confuse him with different homes. Instead, my ex-husband takes him for a few hours every day. Now he just visits my apartment since I stopped wanting to vomit every time I saw him. I use the time to do chores or relax/work out or go out with friends. Yesterday I went for a brunch with some girlfriends. When I got home, my ex-husband looked at me weird. He has been looking weird at me lately, but I haven't bothered asking because I avoid any conversations outside of our son. He told me that I looked beautiful. I ignored it, so he got upset. He started bawling and said that he wished I made this effort when we were still married. He never loved anyone else. Cheating was his biggest regret, but that I share the blame too. That I am an a-hole for doing this to him now looking this way. I didn't know what to say first. I was raging inside, and I wanted to hit him or cry. I told him, well, you should not have made me happy during our marriage then. He called me an a-hole for my attempted joke and left. This is our first fight since what happened. I don't know now. Deep down, I feel that there's some truth in what he said. If I only put more effort, my son would have had his parents together. I feel so much guilt. I have cried nonstop since yesterday. Tell him, I wish you had said, if you don't lose weight, I'm going to bang your best friend. I would have left you then and saved us a load of time. Absolutely this. And no, you are not the a-hole. That's just an excuse your former best friend gave it to him, and they both can rot now. What would he say when you are 50? Well, if you got cosmetic surgery, I wouldn't have cheated. Beauty of the flesh is fleeting. Not the a-hole. Please don't let the cheater make you feel guilty. If he was uncomfortable with your appearance, he should have just said it in a kind way, and then you would have come up with something together as married people do. But no, he just cheated. Your son deserves his mom to be happy and healthy, not with someone who will cheat instead of protecting his marriage and then blame you. He never once told me about his problems with my weight. The next time he says anything, ask him why he didn't put in the effort to communicate with you about how he felt. What happened to your now ex-friend? I have a feeling ex-hubby and ex-friend are no longer together, which is why he is looking at her again. Isn't that often the case? They are divorced and the son isn't 3 years old yet. I have to wonder if the crux of ex-hubby's discontent wasn't her appearance but the baby. He might have been looking forward to becoming a father, but didn't find his pregnant wife attractive or sexy. He also might have become jealous of the baby because he was no longer the focus of his wife's attention after their son was born. A lot of men become jealous or resentful of the time and attention babies require. Whatever his reasoning for cheating, she's doing much better without the ex, which is better for their son. They're still together. OP, your husband is realizing that he and your best friend aren't compatible, and he's trying to get you back. It's better for a child when parents move on with their lives, rather than pretending to be a happy couple. Don't get back with him. Last story. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my fiancé after he insisted on me forgiving my bio dad? So basically, I, 28 female, and my twin brother Leo, 28 male, were raised by my mother alone in our childhood. She was married to my dad, but divorced him when she found out he was cheating, and he just disappeared and didn't even pay child support when we were 4 years old. My mom raised us alone. She grew up with abusive parents. She was a teacher and did her best to take care of us. And she was and still is simply the best mom you could ask for. Never abusive or unfair, never showed any favoritism. She was always interested in us and was the perfect combination of a fun but responsible parent. As a result, my brother and I decided to do our best not to give her grief. We did our best in school, didn't cause trouble, and did all our chores. My mom started dating our stepdad, Carlos, who was her high school sweetheart when we were 11. And this guy was always the father we never had and loved us like his own. They also had our little sister Virginia, and we have been a big happy family. Now, our dad tried to reach us several times, but after a few disappointments, Leo and I decided to cut him off and appreciate that we had a great man like Carlos in our lives who swore to us that he would never leave us. Back to the present. I had been dating my now ex-fiancé Jonathan, 30 male, for 3 years. We had been engaged for a couple of months and living together, and everything seemed perfect. Except one thing. He sometimes would try to convince me to forgive my father and to invite him to our wedding. He knows everything that happened, but he is still insisting on the fact that he is family and I should forgive him. I draw the line when he invited his parents and tried to have an intervention. I had to hold my anger as I heard all their BS, and I was about to snap, but I forced myself to calm down. I just simply took off my ring, left it at a table, and said that we were done for good. They were all shocked as I stood up, grabbed my phone, and called my ex-boyfriend from high school, Lucas, 28 male, and explained what happened to him and asked for some help to go back to my hometown. Lucas and I dated for 4 years, from 14 to 18, and broke up due to distance. We were friends since we were 6 years old, so he was with me through all the disappointments that my bio dad gave me. We're still friends and see each other when we go back home and often call each other. He was angry and told me he would be there right away. The town is only an hour away from the city I was living in. I started to pack my stuff while him and his parents kept trying to make me change my mind, but I just ignored and called my mom and brother to tell them the wedding was off and that I would be going back home for a while. They kept telling me I was exaggerating, that I was choosing wrong, but I just packed everything I owned and Lucas showed up pretty quick. Of course, my ex-fiancé was mad that I had called my ex-boyfriend, but I didn't care, and Lucas and I just went back home. Luckily, I work from home, so I don't have any problem moving whenever I want. I can work from anywhere. I decided to let know all my close circle what had happened right away, and they're all on my side. I arrived at my hometown, and my stepdad, mom, and little sister received me with a lot of love and told me I needed to do what felt right and not to force myself to get myself in a marriage if my fiancé can't even respect my boundaries and invalidates my feelings. Lucas said that I deserve someone better and to try to focus on moving on. However, Jonathan's friends and family is still berating me for breaking up with him in front of his parents and leaving with my ex just like that. But in my defense, he didn't give me a choice. Part of me is thinking they're only doing it because they're his family and friends. But part of me is starting to believe that maybe, I handled things wrong. I don't regret breaking up with him. It hurts, but it just feels better like this. But maybe I was too harsh? I don't know. Am I the a-hole? I want to know why this family is so insistent on a cheater being forgiven. I'd be incredibly suspicious of that. Not the a-hole. I had an abusive parent that I cut off. I've had so many friends and partners who just don't get it. Who insist, but they are family. You have to forgive. My ex-BFF in college was reporting everything I did to my abusive parent. I just wanted to help you. Your parent loves you and is worried. I've learned to stay away from people who insist on reunification more than once. They never stop because they have no clue what a bad family really is. They can't comprehend it, and they will keep pushing until they get the Disney reunion they want. Because they truly don't believe family could ever do something so awful, and you must be exaggerating or misunderstood. They never stop because they have no clue what a bad family really is. Some of them don't know, but some of them know, and they're just enabling this. Cheaters enable cheaters, abusers enable abusers. In situations like yours or like OP, I always would ask if they're ignorant or enablers. This strikes really close to home. My wife wants me to reconcile with my abusive mother. She lets slide her siblings who are abusive to their kids, so she's an enabler. This explains a lot. Thank you for this insight. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for blowing up on my wife for spending $8,000 on a motorcycle for my stepson? I have been with my wife for over 6 years. I have a 17-year-old stepson and a biological 22-year-old son. The family had ups and downs just like any other family. My son is getting married in February. I have put some money aside to help him out as a gift for me for his wedding. I've already talked to him about it and he and his fiancée said they appreciate it very much. My son deserves it because before his mom died, he took over her care and spent nights at a hospital with her. He cried many times because his mother's death broke him. I'm glad he found happiness again. My stepson is a motorcyclist / it started off as a hobby. He has posters of all kinds of motorcycles, pictures of famous racers and motorcyclists. He has a group of friends he calls brothers, and they ride together and wear some kind of bracelets that represent the group. He always does 3D arts and logos, which I find stunning to be honest. He's talented, no question about it. Anyway, before Christmas, his mom told me she wanted to get him a motorcycle as a Christmas gift and he'd love it so much. I told her I can't afford it, and that maybe she should think of another gift for him. Everything was fine until Christmas Day while we were exchanging gifts. My stepson received a small box from my wife that had a key in it. We were confused. She told him to go outside and we all followed, and then I saw a brand new motorcycle in the driveway. I started wondering where she got the money. I didn't bring it up right there and then. I waited a bit. I asked my wife and she told me that she took $8,000 from the account to buy the motorcycle. I freaking lost it. I blew up on her and asked if she was kidding me. $8,000? That's the money I put aside for my son's wedding. She said that I needed to calm down, but the money was already gone. My son showed up and asked what was wrong. I couldn't tell him his stepmom took the money that was meant for him to buy an expensive motorcycle that I'm sure my stepson will throw in the garage just like he did the old ones in a very short time. So far, he had 2 motorcycles that ended up being damaged. Those motorcycles cost us so much money other than paying for spares and parts that needed repairing. I told my wife she has 2 days to return the motorcycle and get the money back. And she defended herself, saying she can't do that because it'd be devastating for my stepson, and that he'll resent me if he knew I made her return the motorcycle. I told her that I was ready to talk to him and explain if that's what it takes, and she started crying, saying I was okay with my stepson's spirit crushing like that. I told her it was her fault for taking money in the first place without telling me. She went upstairs and stayed there the entire night. I haven't even talked to my son yet, and it's so exhausting since my wife says I'm being cruel to my stepson. Problem is, she says my stepson will resent me if I return the motorcycle. Now, for the top comments of this post. Not the a-hole. What? She bought a motorcycle for $8,000. Never mind using money that's not hers, and expected you to just be okay with it? Huge red flag. There was no respect for boundaries here. 1. She spent $8,000 after discussing it with OP who told her that they didn't have the money to spare. 2. She took money that she most likely knew was for the oldest son's wedding, her stepson, and spent it on a lavish gift for her own bio kid, thus demonstrating once and for all that OP's oldest child is not a priority to her. 3. Even if the money wasn't already promised to help pay for a wedding, spending $8,000 on one of your kid's casual hobbies is sending a clear message to the older kid. Not the a-hole. Financial infidelity is just as damaging to a marriage as physical infidelity in my humble opinion. I'd be thinking some serious thought about what is going on in your wife's head. Like, how did she think you would react? Why didn't she care? And was she actively trying to sabotage you from contributing to your son's wedding? Not the a-hole. Here's the thing. If someone gave me an $8,000 gift and I found out it was using someone else's money, I would be angry that the gift giver stole from someone else. I wouldn't resent the victim. Take a good minute to think about that. If your stepson had any decency, there would be no chance he'd resent you. Don't feel bad about insisting on your wife coming up with the entire amount back somehow. I doubt you'll get the whole amount back from the motorcycle. It sounds like the wife is already planning on framing it as though it's OP's fault, and that's why she's using the "he'll resent you" manipulation. If I were you, OP, I would talk to stepson. Now, for the next story. Am I the a-hole for buying my friend's childhood home? I've got a friend, Kay, that I've known since we were 5, and now we're in our mid-30s. We used to be close, but after uni, he moved to the US for work, so we only talk occasionally. In fact, I see his parents more often than I see him, because pre-pandemic, his dad would get the same train as me into London, and sometimes we'd sit together. Anyway, me and my wife had a kid, and would like one more at least, so we're looking to buy a house. We currently live in a 2-bedroom flat and it's getting small. We were looking at listings online when I came across my friend's childhood home. Turns out, his parents were looking to downsize and were selling their house. Honestly, it was perfect for us. 5 bedrooms, garden space, close to the station. They'd even had a special line laid into their house for super high-speed internet, something like 5 to 10 gigabytes per second down. Seeing this, I phoned up my friend's dad and asked him about the house. He was very open to the idea of selling it to me, and even said he was glad it was staying in the family. Our families are also close. We dealt with each other directly, without an estate agent, and therefore he was able to give me a nice discount. All of that was in October, but my friend Kay has been livid ever since. He keeps saying how I'd bought his childhood, and I was taking advantage of his parents by having paid them less. His sister, on the other hand, was happy for me. And on lieu of a housewarming party, sent my family a framed picture of our 2 families from when we were about 10 or so. While I didn't do anything wrong legally, I feel I may have stepped on Kay's toes by now living in a place where he grew up. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. As someone whose dad is about to put my childhood home on the market, I would love if someone of my friends could buy it. It's getting sold regardless. The price that you and friend's father agreed upon must have been fair, or else I doubt he would have sold. You'd think it would be a bonus that friend could still visit his childhood home. If you have the ability to go there one last time before it sells, I recommend trying the Marie Kondo method of saying goodbye to stuff. When my parents were selling my childhood home, we had to downsize a ton of childhood memorabilia, and her method of thanking things was helpful. It felt crazy at first, but freeing. When I spent my last day there, I went around and touched all my favorite places in the house and thanked them for the memories I made there. Saying goodbye to a childhood home can be a bit of a grieving process. Well, I can understand why Kay feels a little weird about it. You are not the a-hole. The nostalgia is no reason for you not to buy the house. Moreover, you didn't take advantage of his parents since the discount you got was the money they now didn't have to pay to the middleman. I don't know what Kay's problem is, but it's not you. This for sure, realtors take a large chunk of money when you work with them. The OP and a friend's father working together essentially cut that cost out and was able to give the OP a discount. Sounds like a win-win for everyone. Not the a-hole, obviously. Friend needs to grow up. If he felt that strong about the house, he should have bought it himself. Also, it's just a house, not his actual childhood. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for backing out of an agreement I never made? 2 months ago, my dad, 54 male, approached me with an opportunity to buy a female Labrador puppy from his friend, let's call him Joe, who shows and breeds pedigree Labradors. According to my dad, Joe is offering me the Labrador puppy for a heavily discounted rate, $80, because I was his friend's daughter. Nothing else was mentioned to me about why the puppy was so cheap, but I assumed my dad's friend Joe was just being generous. Looking back, I was definitely naive, but I'd been wanting a Labrador pup for a long time, and the offer was just too good to pass up. That same day, I drove over 2 hours to Joe's farm to collect my new 3-month-old Labrador puppy and signed a paperwork transferring the ownership of the pup to me. Joe never mentioned anything else about the terms of the sale, and I never signed any other paperwork or contract regarding further terms. I want to stress that in the period directly after the sale, neither Joe or my dad discussed with me the apparent extra terms I had supposedly agreed to, until recently. I mentioned to my dad that I had booked Jennifer, name of pup, for her desexing next month, and my dad immediately told me I had to cancel. He went on to explain that he had agreed, on my behalf, to allow Joe to use my Labrador to breed more pups for him to sell. This is apparently why I was able to buy Jennifer for such a discounted rate. I was shocked, but frankly not surprised since my dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details, / lying by omission. As far as I'm concerned, I never agreed to these terms, so I'm not bound to them. Dad and Joe may have had a verbal agreement, but I am the legal owner of Jennifer and there was no verbal, nor written, agreement between me and Joe, so I don't care. I called Joe and made it crystal clear to him that I absolutely was not planning to breed Jennifer, let alone give him the puppies to sell. He was upset, called me a few choice names, and demanded I pay back the difference between the discounted rates and the normal rates for Jennifer, since I wasn't breeding her for him. I refused, because I legally own Jennifer now, and the sale is over. If he wanted me to breed Jennifer, he should have talked to me about this personally because I was the buyer, not my dad. Joe is apparently fuming, and my dad is angry because he doesn't understand why it's a big deal. And other extended family members who know Joe think I'm being a witch and should at least pay him back the difference. But I honestly just don't feel like I'm obligated to. It's their fault, especially Joe, for not mentioning these extra terms to me before the sale. He's the seller and he should know better when conducting his business. Also, according to the agreement, I would have to breed Jennifer whenever Joe wanted, so I'm guessing non-stop. Plus, Joe would not have to pay for Jennifer's medical expenses when pregnant, and that would all come out of my pocket. Hard pass. Not at A-hole. Make sure you have your dog chipped and some sort of tracking device on the collar. I wouldn't trust Joe or your father not to try to take the dog back. Maybe also look into getting some cameras put up at your place. Small tattoo on the dog. It makes it easier to know it's your dog, and microchip can slip placement. I'd honestly do both though. Not A-hole. Have your dad pay the difference, as he was the one who deliberately lied by omission. Not A-hole. The dog is your dog, and you do not owe anyone anything. You're absolutely correct that if the terms of the sale included making the dog available for breeding, that the transfer of ownership paperwork needed to include that information. It didn't, and nothing else was signed. There isn't anything anyone can do legally. Do be careful though, because I wouldn't put it past a scorned backyard breeder, and frankly that's what he sounds like with his attempt to force you to breed dogs for him, to steal your dog. Make sure that she's never outside alone, be careful at dog parks, be sure she's chipped, and be clear with any groomers, daycare or boarding centers that you and only you are to pick up your dog. Not an a-hole. He sounds like a backyard breeder who doesn't actually care about the health of the breed. Real breeders would charge extra for a puppy with breeding rights and a legal document would be drawn up. You should only breed a female dog 3 times or else it'll start to heavily impact her health. He doesn't care about the health of these dogs. Go through with the desexing and don't pay that guy anything. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to spare a cent for a guy who desperately needs money for HIV medication? I, 30 female, shared a flat with my friend 28 male a couple of years back. We got along very well, and I would even help him with his projects at uni, occasionally tutor him in subjects he wasn't good at. I never needed nor asked for help in return. Well, the day I was set to move out of our flat, I packed up all my stuff. We never had issues of stealing in our flat during the few years we lived together, so I was shocked when I got to my new residence and found that around $150 was missing from my wallet. I was just about to start a new job, and I'd really needed that money. I texted him about it, and at first, he pretended to play dumb, but eventually admitted to it before blocking me on all social media. I felt extremely betrayed, because even though it wasn't that much money, I trusted him and considered him a sibling. Always dropped whatever I was doing to help him whenever he needed it. And he thanked me by stabbing me in the back? Well, recently he messaged me on Facebook. Apparently, he has HIV. This part is true. A mutual friend corroborated it. He wanted to sincerely apologize for what he did, and is asking to borrow money to buy medication. He promises that he'll return it eventually, and he even included all this mushy stuff about how I was the only one who was ever nice to him, and he always regretted stealing from me, how it was the worst mistake of his life, etc. I said no. Unfortunately, I still am not over what he did. He said he understood and stopped the convo. Mutual friend called me an a-hole for not helping a guy with HIV, even just a little bit since I have a stable career now, etc. But from my point of view, what this guy did really cut me to the bone. $150 was a lot to me back then. Still is, actually. And I simply want nothing to do with him because of what he did. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Answering a few questions in the comments. Why won't mutual friend give money? Mutual friend has no stable job but knows I have some cash to spare. Is ex-roommate a drug addict? I don't know. The possibility did cross my mind, but having lived with him for a time, I never got the impression he did substances. I never lost anything in that flat until he stole from me while I was moving out, which is why it was such a big shock to me. I never thought he'd do something like that. What about the $150? He never paid me back, never told me why he stole from me and what he used it for. Sadly, if he had told me he needed to borrow some cash, even though I was struggling financially then, I would have found a way to scrounge up some money to lend to him. Can't he buy his own meds / get them for cheaper? Unfortunately, I live in a country where healthcare is expensive, and not being able to afford medication is a prevalent issue here. Now for the judgment. Not Dayhall. Tell him you already lent him $150, and instead, you were waiting for it to be returned. Very telling, the guy only apologized for stealing when he needed more money from Opie. Not Dayhall. He betrayed your trust, and even if he hadn't, you still have no obligation to help him. It's your money. Not Dayhall. Trust is a very strong yet fragile thing. Once broken, it's very difficult to fix it. Your trust has been broken, and now he's reaching out to you for help. There is no obligation on your part to help him now if you don't want to. Also, he stole from you when you needed the money. Why is he expecting your help now? I think you hit the nail on the head in the fact that he broke Opie's trust. This ex-roommate has also not shown that he can be trusted again.